Welcome to Paradelphia Radio. This is Rick Pruitt here once again, and this week we are knee-deep in the pumpkin latte and the falling leaves and the scary movies. And what better way to kick off or continue our Halloween season than to have our special guests on for this week. We're going to introduce them to you in a few minutes. Don and Vicki Smeraldi of the best damn monster magazine this side of, I don't know, the whole universe. Scary Monsters Magazine. First off, though, we have Mr. Toxic Michael.
Toxic Michael. I feel like I should have like a collared shirt on or something.
A little more formal today. We have guests.
It is very formal. I mean, should I take the hat off?
You can leave it. It's a look.
It's not a good or a bad look. It's just a look.
It's just a look.
It's what you've chosen to do with your face. We accept it and go with it.
True.
This is not the Monster Magazine. This is. I am not the next cover of it. Beast.
It's entirely possible. The Beast of Toxic Radio.
That's why I've never been married. Anyway, go.
So it's been quite a while since we've had our guests on. They were on about a year and 3 months ago or so now.
Oh, back when we could actually eat indoors without masks.
Back when you were maskless and you could actually interact with people and shake hands and didn't have to squirt antibiotic all over your hands every time you came within 2 feet of another person. And
remember those days?
Remember those days? The good old days. So waiting in the studio patiently, we have our guest here. So let's bring him in and let's get this thing started right away. Don and Vicki Smeraldi of Scary Monsters Magazine.
Hi guys.
Hi Rick. Hey, Toxic Mike.
And just on cue, my light went out when you came on. So there's a sign.
Nice.
Ooh, spooky.
So I'm setting the mood here. It's a spooky mood.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so this is great. We've talked to you guys, I don't know, 5-6 times before over the years, but we've never actually seen you to talk to you face to face. So this is pretty cool.
Not as ugly in person. It's great.
This is pretty neat here. So how have you guys been? How's the magazine coping with all this COVID nonsense?
Well, really good. It's actually been better with COVID with us. I mean, we know it's a terrible tragedy and all these people that it's impacted, but for us working at home, it hasn't really changed much. And a lot of people really want to get magazines and books and read things and build model kits. So we're busier than ever, really.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine it's kind of that the cabin fever thing where people are just, I've heard that before from different publishers and different people in general, just saying they want to do something, and they turn to TV. TV is a big thing, all the Netflix, and they're releasing all their original programming now because they have a captive audience. But
the
like
Tiger
you say,
King.
The Tiger King. But like you say, it's kind of the same thing for you guys. Like I imagine it would be. It's got to be tough not to get. And I know that's changed recently. But for a while there, you guys weren't able to send it the magazine out to distributors and publishers, or not. I'm sorry, not publishers. Stores.
Yeah, it's been so like 116 came out in February, and that was our Brains Gone Mad issue, and then so it was like literally on the shelf for like 3 weeks, and then all the stores closed. So 117 we had it on pallets up at our printer. We printed in March, and it was just sitting there. Like a week after we printed, we get a message from all of our distributors, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. They're like, "Don't ship us anything." So we're just finding out that like 117 that was supposed to come out in April is just like hitting the shelves in New York.
Oh wow!
So, yeah.
Well, can't
get into the bookstores, so it's really a challenge. And I guess they're having hard times. A lot of publishers haven't been able to keep it going.
Well, you look at it this way. I mean, at least it gives people a plethora of your magazine to read over the Halloween season.
Well, it's true because 118 was supposed to come out in June. So when all of this happened, we were like, we're going to push it till September, and we actually changed our story budget around to make it the Halloween issue. So
yeah, well, it is one hell of an issue here, and I want to start off talking about this with the most obvious difference in this magazine as opposed to any other you've done is the cover. Scott Jackson did another great job on the cover, but it's not just his artwork. You guys have made this cover completely unique. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the whole process on how this glow-in-the-dark cover came about is really, it was Scott's idea, and he had said something months and months ago, but it's an expensive process to print with UV inks. You know, you have to do the whole print run, and then we had to subcontract it out to have them do the special screen on there.
There it is.
So look at that.
Yeah, you expose this thing. I don't know if you can see the back cover or not, but you expose this thing to the sun, especially. It really glows. It's a great glow on the back cover. I think we're kind of the first monster magazine that's had a glow in the dark cover. So it's really, we wanted to do something special for the readers. Everyone's looking forward to Halloween, but this is really a special treat.
Yeah, it's really neat. Did that cover? Did Scott have to change the way he drew the cover, or did you have to somehow collaborate more with him to get the cover to be the way you wanted it, as opposed to a regular?
Yeah, we did, because when it's on the shelf, we still want it to look good, so we had to have halftones in there, grayscale halftones, which really don't translate well to glow in the dark. So we ended up having to, our printer, Patrick Joe Don, he actually helped us out and said, listen, they did one coat, doesn't look good, it's not bright enough, I know you're not going to like it, and we actually had to hit it again with the UV inks to make the thing really pop. So it looks great on the shelf. It's not full glossy, it's black and white, but you can feel the texture of the UV inks, which also people like, oh, I like the way it feels. I'm like, well, why don't you put it in the sun and then see what happens at night? It's even better.
There you go. There's the full front and back cover for anybody watching on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube.
And you don't often see a black and white cover anymore on the stand, so that alone really gets your attention.
Yeah, that is unique. In fact, I got the copy I have about a week ago at a Barnes and Noble near here, and it really does. Like as you wouldn't think it would, but it does, because it pops because of the black and white. So you kind of notice that in the all the other color magazines, that sticks out.
Yeah, I can see it at night at the bookstore. This glow coming from the magazine rack now.
Look in the windows and see your magazine. See the placement of your magazine. Yeah.
What's that light?
So you know what this means now. You guys, you have a glow in the dark magazine. You got to raise the bar again next year. You got to think that you got a year now. You got to have one that like comes out at you or something. And
3D
3D
magazine. Yeah.
Talking about 3D, and then we'd have to do a pair of glasses to go inside the magazine. All right, we're working on it.
No phenomenon.
That's funny. So, and again, my light goes out. It's just not going to work. So we're going to sit here in the dark, and it'll be a spooky mood. So it's nothing I can do. What are you going to do?
Get a flashlight and shine it up in your face. That'll look
good. So
he's a horror host. That's what he is.
Yeah. So this magazine in particular, I noticed you guys had a lot of, like, normally you have a lot of stuff about the genre movies, which is your bread and butter. But this magazine in particular, as opposed to even the other Halloween magazines issues that you put out, you put a lot of ghost stories in this magazine, which I thought was really interesting. Were they original stories, or were they stories that you collated from different sources?
They're all original, and it was intentional. We really wanted to load it up this time with as much Halloween content and, of course, original content and ghost stories and that sort of thing. So it's kind of front-loaded in that regard. But like the Antebellum Nightmare by Phil Guanazzo, that one is an actual story his grandfather would tell. And who knows if it's fully true or not? We don't know, but
that one kind of freaked me out a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. That one kind of got to me a little bit. I wasn't expecting that one.
Well, and gone are the days where you used to sit around a campfire and tell ghost stories, and we really kind of wanted to bring that back into a tradition where people could sit around and talk about these stories, and are they true, or was it true? Did it really happen? And and it really flavors the whole content of the ghost movies that we cover as well. So it's a nice blend.
Yeah, definitely. It's not specific to the movies or to the films, but like you're saying, it's obviously right for the season, and it does. It adds to the magazine, because you kind of go from I don't like to read the magazine all the way through. Some people, I guess, like to read cover to cover, and I'm not that person. I kind of go here, go there. I'll pull up a story on page 50 and then read one on page 110. It's just over the course of weeks. So when you kind of pepper those ghost stories in with the stories about the movies themselves, it really does. It makes for like a full experience. It's a really cool way to go about the magazine. Are you guys going to look to do that more of that in your regular issues?
I don't know. It really, our contributors, a lot of it's based on what we get in, their contributions. We do try to stick with a theme, which always makes it fun each time. But sometimes you can't necessarily get all your content to kind of point towards the theme. So definitely for Halloween, though, we want to make that extra special each year. So we're going to keep doing that.
Very cool. So the cover itself is a scene, if anybody does not recognize this, is a scene from one of the films that is highlighted in your magazine this month, Carnival of Souls. That is a creepy film. That is, and when I say that, it's like all these films are creepy to an extent, but that one seemed to be a little ahead of its time. What do you guys think about that film?
Oh, man.
It was way ahead of its time. I mean, I didn't see it for a number of years, only because, seriously, I saw it in discount DVD and VHS bins, like at Walmart or whatever. Right. And I thought, oh, that's just a B movie. I kind of disregarded it, but really, people shouldn't. You really need to see that movie because they did it with about $30,000 in their budget, $30,000 to $35,000.
Right.
And 60 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Herc Harvey, the director, who actually was, the head of the whole thing, he used to do industrial films, kind of like what George Romero did before Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And so that was really their main thing. And they went back to that. But Herc Harvey said, I want to do a horror movie. And they did it. And boy, they really came up with something unique for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it touches on a lot of themes that you didn't really see back then. I mean, it's got that the element of a living nightmare. You don't know whether it's almost got in a weird way. It has an M. Night Shyamalan feel to it because you're not quite sure what you're seeing and you're waiting for the other shoe to drop during the entire film. And it's got these creepy visuals. We're seeing it right now on the screen. Everybody watching on YouTube and Facebook, these like zombie ghouls, like white faces and dark eyes, and it's not a whole lot of makeup, but it's effective, specifically because of the black and white. Like you couldn't have done this film in color and had it be as effective, I don't think.
No, and our writer Jason Strangus, he really wanted to do a good job with this one, and I think he did, and also Anthony DeSalvo in kind of the follow-up article. But Jason mentions how much it's kind of like the Twilight Zone if you really think about it, but an extended Twilight Zone episode.
Right.
It has that feel.
And it's got that low key, like I say, that low key horror that you just it's an uneasy film. And
in horror, like I wouldn't categorize it like now I would categorize it as horror. Back then it was like a mind trip because you don't really know what you're watching and you can't really figure it out. And you're like, where is this going? And a lot of people have to watch it more than once to figure out, I don't want to give a spoiler, but it is available. You can watch the full thing. You can stream it on YouTube. So if you can't pick it up on like the Criterion Collection has a phenomenal remake
copy of it. Yeah.
Remastered version of it, which I would highly recommend.
How much do you think this film influenced films like, say, the Rosemary's Baby or The Shining? These films in the 70s that came 10 or so years afterward that had that low-key, unsettling feel to them.
It had to influence many of them, and it's kind of funny. I mentioned George Romero, and of course, Night of the Living Dead was several years later, and he at one time said that it was a major influence on him making that movie, and then as Night of the Living Dead took off and it's become a cult film, he was like, what's Carnival of Souls?
Yeah, but no, I can see that.
Yeah,
yeah. So moving on to another one of your major articles in this issue, it wouldn't be Halloween without talking about things like the Don Post masks. For anybody that doesn't know what a Don Post mask is, shame on you, first off. But Don Post masks are the pullover latex, completely covering your head masks that were everywhere back maybe 30, 40 years ago, made in the likeness of all the Universal monsters and the Star Trek characters. And they went on, they did many different incarnations over the years of these magazines, of these masks. And you guys had in issue 110, quite a while back, you had a part 1 of a 2-part article about the history of the Don Post masks and Don Post Company. It was written by a gentleman named Arthur Allegro. And now in this issue, you have the kind of the follow-up, or the part 2 of all this, where he talks about how the company first expanded. They made some smart business decisions, and then they sort of went on lean times in more recent years. Can you guys speak a little bit about the history of these masks and how much influence they had over genre films, or vice versa?
Well, the Don Post masks were definitely the masks to have, like you say, especially Famous Monsters of Filmland. I mean, practically every monster kid, that's the magazine they started with that made them a monster kid. And in the back, invariably, you'd see the Don Post masks. And he started off with just a few different types. And then when they had the Universal Studios license, then it took off. And they did a very famous 1966 calendar with specific masks for just that calendar. And those are worth a lot of money now. But it's amazing the process they went through. I mean, I didn't really even realize how custom made these things were, hand painted. You just don't realize it, because today, with all the different processes, I'm sure there's not that much of a custom nature to it as there was back then. But they were on a long time. Don Jr. took over eventually in the 70s or so, even though his dad was involved with it heavily. And through 2012, they kept going and going, and eventually they just weren't able to continue. But,
I honestly didn't know they were around that long. I hadn't heard about them for years.
Well, what I think is kind of interesting, there's a new company, Trick or Treat Studios, and they actually have gotten the Universal license to do some amazing masks. And Trick or Treat Studios is really kind of reincarnation of Don Post, basically. But they've really taken it to a different level.
Yeah.
And really, the Don Post mask, you kind of had two different types of mask and costume things going on. You had the Ben Cooper, those ones that made your face sweat with the elastic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They were thin plastic, and you had the kind of the little cape thing that you'd wear. And, those were the simple ones. And then you had the over-the-head full mask, sometimes even with the claws or the hands, as a set. So, that kind of ramped up the creativity and the value of all these things.
And Don Jr., he was very smart in what he did. He recognized that the industry was going in a different direction in the 70s, and he started to license more science fiction type characters, which was not the bread and butter of the company, but it was where the genre was going at that time.
And you'll see on the article that he really credits Freddy Krueger, that mask, and some following ones for saving the company at the time when they didn't have as many licenses as they had.
Yeah. And there's an interesting anecdote that I just have to mention this because it makes sense in a way, but it kind of threw me when I read it. It's had there's a connection between the Don Post masks and a little bit of their decline, and of all things, the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. Can you remember that story, or that piece of the story?
Yeah, there was, and I didn't know it until I read it and was proofing the article, but there was a latex shortage because of the AIDS epidemic where, a lot of condoms were being sold, so the
Right.
latex was short, and so it affected the mask business. If you can believe that.
Yeah, it kind of made them a little bit less quality.
Right.
They weren't as thick. They didn't have as much latex in them. I just, I just thought that was an interesting little aside. I would have never put those two things together, but here we are,
Yeah, and it's interesting, how the value of the original Don Bose masks have just skyrocketed, and a lot of guys that we know they'll fill the inside of the mask with foam. They'll put prosthetic eyes in it, and the original ones that are preserved with that type of way to display them. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. Now one of the things that draws me, at least personally, to this type of movie, to your magazine specifically, but the genre movies, is they're more fun than they have made movies in recent years. I mean, there's horror movies that I like that are within the last 20 years, but you can't really call them fun horror movies. And one of the things that made some of these films fun were the people who actually produced the movies and how they got so interactive with their audiences. And one of the examples of this, and Joe Pavlansky writes about this in this issue, is William Castle and how he would promote his movies and the unique way that he would get interactive with his movies with the audience. Can you guys talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, the gimmicks were big from like 1958 or so through the early 60s. And William Castle was the king of doing that. Just about every movie, he had some type of gimmick, publicity-wise or actually in the theater itself. I actually have a list here of, I'm not going to read off the whole list, but there were other movies that kind of did the same thing and I think followed along from him. One of them was The Hypnotic Eye, and we featured that in one of our previous magazines. But in that one, you had audience participation where they were actually kind of hypnotized. And then Psycho, the Hitchcock thriller, they had a no late admissions policy, so you couldn't come into the movie after it already started because they didn't want things to be given away by other moviegoers.
Yeah,
right.
Well, Castle's 13 Ghosts, and that's one of the articles that Joe Pavlansky really kind of highlights in this issue. And the gimmicks that they did back then were just really kind of ahead of their time. They had a skeleton that was on, I don't know what kind of a wire, that would just scare everybody in the audience because it would go shooting across the, during the middle of the movie. So the gimmicks that he employed, what was the other one where he had the de-icers from airplanes?
Yeah, it would give you a mild electric shock in your seat.
That's great.
But my favorite one, and it's not William Castle, but it was from a movie called, and I haven't seen it, but Scent of Mystery. Mm-hmm. And they actually called it Smell-O-Vision, where certain odors would permeate the theater at certain parts of the movie.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But, more recent movies, for example, in the 70s, surround sound was a big deal with Earthquake, that movie, Midway, and a few others. And with surround sound, some of the theaters actually experienced some damage, so they stopped doing that. I mean, I never knew that, but that's what happened. And then there's other things kind of more modern movies have done, but probably the main one these days is 3D. I mean, even though that's been around a long time, 3D with the theaters that show that now.
Yeah. I got to tell you, 13 Ghosts was, everybody has that one movie when they're a kid. When you're an adult, you look back on it and go, why was I afraid of that movie?
Yeah.
But that movie for me was that movie. Because I don't know why. I honestly don't know why, but it freaked me out to the point where I don't think I slept a wink for about a week after I saw that movie. When I was maybe 8 or so, 7, 8, 9 years old. And I don't know what it was. It might have been the ghost. It might have been the whole presentation of the movie. Because it's to somebody who's not an adult and has a perspective on this, it is a creepy movie. Like if you don't, I think when you're younger, you just, and even back then, even if you weren't younger, you didn't have the cynicism you have now, where you kind of know the tricks and you know that the special effects, and you're like, oh, it's just a movie. Well, yeah, you kind of knew that back then too, but I think you got more lost in it, and you didn't have, like I said, all that cynicism.
And
you were going into it.
And you could relate to it because it has the Charles Herbert in there, the young boy.
Right. Yes.
And you're kind of following along with him, and he puts the glasses on. You know something's going to happen.
Right. And that was, and that's what I'm saying about the interactive part, because they in that particular movie they handed out. They were just 3D glasses, but they were done differently, where they had the part that would.
It's a ghost viewer.
Ghost viewer, yeah. It's called ghost viewer. Ghost viewer and ghost remover. There were two different glasses, right? And you look through the one.
If you want to see him, hold it down. If you don't want to see him.
Right. And when the kid in the movie, or when someone, in fact, they had a pair of glasses in the movie that were similar to the ghost remover that you had in your hand. So that was like a trigger to the audience to let them know when to put the ghost viewer up when the person in the movie put the glasses on.
Right.
So they made that movie specifically to interact with the audience through the movie. And I just think that's such a unique thing that you don't have and haven't had for years in the theater experience anymore.
Well, and who was the witch that was in that movie? Do you remember?
That was what's her name from Wizard of Oz? Margaret Hamilton.
Margaret Hamilton,
yeah. And that was a pretty good casting on his part too. Yeah. Because that wasn't so long before. I mean, now it's been 100 years almost or whatever. But back then, you're talking about maybe 20 something years, and you know, she was still relevant. She was still the witch that maybe you saw on TV when you were, watching Wizard of Oz the year before or whatever.
You definitely recognize her for sure.
Yeah. There it is, a ghost viewer. Yeah. So one of the things that you guys have an article about in this issue that I thought was really cool, and I don't. It's one of those things where you read it and go, "Wow, why isn't that done more often?" But I guess it's just I didn't think of it either. Is this novel versus film idea? Because every film, or almost every film, has source material, and usually that's some type of a book or novel, maybe a short story or something along those lines that the movie was based on, and you never really see that. You don't see a comparison between the source material and the end result movie. And it's very interesting to read that kind of back and forth and see how they are the same and how they differ. And in this issue, you guys do have an article like that. You want to explain what that article is about?
Well, Jeff Owens really came up with that idea, and I think we are going to continue with it as far as comparing the novel to the film.
Cool.
But in this case, he went along and explained exactly like certain scenes. It was a relatively brief article, but very detailed, and he did a great job with it. Comparing to the two movies, Burn Witch Burn and Conjure Wife. So, in my case, I believe, books, because of the nature of a book, you can get into so much more detail, and to be able to put it on the screen isn't as easy as it looks. If you think of today, Lord of the Rings, and you read the books, or The Hobbit, and you look at the movies, I think Peter Jackson did a great job, but other people don't. So
yeah, and it's almost always, at least in my experience, that the movie is not as good as the book. Almost always. The one exception to that, I don't know if you guys have ever read the book for Jaws, but that book, I in fact I heard it on an audio. Was it Audible? I listened to it. It's nothing like the movie, and it's so much. The movie is so much better, the way that Spielberg made that movie.
Really?
The book is basically it's a love triangle, and oh, by the way, there's a shark in the water. Because no, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. Hooper, the guy played by Richard Dreyfuss, the character played by Richard Dreyfuss, he and Brody's wife have an affair in the book.
Wow.
Wow.
So it's like this love triangle. It's like this 1970s era, like open marriage love triangle angle thing. And oh, by the way, there's a shark. It was so much worse than the movie.
Wow.
So yeah, it's not. I would highly recommend to avoid, unless you're curious. I would highly recommend avoiding the book because it's garbage basically.
Well, one of our other writers in this issue, Jim Nemeth, he's got an earlier article on UNICEF and trick-or-treating for UNICEF.
Yeah.
But he's actually co-authored a book that does exactly just what you're talking about.
Right.
What's better, the film or the movie? And he goes through. Actually, I think we have it. We have his ad is actually in this issue, and he goes through 22 different movies and compares like Night of the Demon was the movie better than Casting the Runes. So he's got 22 different films that he's actually done an extensive, it's 400 and something page book. But
Really?
yeah.
Cool. I'll have to look into that. I think I did see that in one of the ads in the back of the book. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk about was, we don't mention this when you guys are on, but you guys have this whole back section of these magazines that you put out that have these really cool ads for really cool products that you just cannot get anywhere else. You mentioned the model kits earlier. You have the masks this time around. Glasses like those old. I saw the glasses with the monsters on them. And it reminded me of back in the day when you used to have to collect glasses at like Burger King.
Yes, exactly.
So where do you guys find manufacturers for this kind of stuff?
Well, a lot of wholesalers we deal with. There are items out there for monster kids, monster boomers, whatever you want to call them. And, it kind of points back to the old monster magazines having a catalog in the back, although we don't have anything for like 99 cents.
Yeah.
And what we used to mail out for as little kids, that was a real exciting thing about the magazine back then. But we have lots of readers who, they want to do mail order. They want to look through a catalog. We don't offer a catalog, but that is our catalog in the magazine. So
yeah, it really is. It's this is if anybody watching, this is what is that, Mike? It's an old ad.
Yeah, it was a big deal to be able to mail away and order something from the back of a monster magazine, and it's kind of funny how we got involved with Scary Monsters and became the publishers, because we've had a classic horror and sci-fi collectible business for 25 plus years. And the magazine was really publishing the magazine was really kind of built on our love of classic horror. So we already had the product, and now we're publicizing it in the magazine. So. Yeah,
I mean, again, you guys do such a phenomenal job with this magazine. And like you said at the beginning of the interview, it's so unique. There are other magazines out there that deal with horror movies and a couple that even deal with older genre movies like this, but nothing looks and feels like Scary Monsters magazine. It really doesn't.
And I really believe that it's a time travel machine. Yeah. When you open up the pages of our magazine, you really are transported back to it's a melancholy feeling of nostalgia, because you remember who you were with, you remember seeing it with your mom. Your mom used to sneak and buy you monster magazines when you were a kid. So all these different feelings get conjured up, and it takes you to a place where no other magazine can ever replicate.
Yeah, and I love and this isn't this particular issue, but you guys do one in the spring, the Monster Memories issue, and that's where everybody kind of gives their own story of where they got first involved with the genre and memories they have of, like you just said, with your mom buying you a magazine or whatever it might have been, and it really does.
That's an opportunity when we do the Monster Memories. That's an opportunity for our quote unquote regular readers who aren't necessarily writers, but they're fans, and they're very passionate about collecting things, building model kits, reading monster magazines, that sort of thing. So we want them to have a voice. And so that's why we feature their memories in there. Yeah.
Now, we were talking before.
You had an article in Scary Monsters.
I did a couple episodes. I keep saying episodes. I've been doing this for years. Issues ago. We were talking, I think it was off air earlier, about the whole COVID thing and how drive-in movies seem to be coming back into vogue now. How do you guys see that affecting, I guess, the genre movies, and maybe specifically, like maybe eventually trickle down to your magazine, but in general, the whole genre as a whole of those old movies and that whole era? Do you see this as of all things, a good thing, maybe for people that love this type of thing, monster kids?
Well, we kind of alluded to that. Yeah, it's a passion, it's a hobby. Some of our readers, people that we talk to on the phone, they really can't live without it. And unfortunately, as all of them age, including myself, things will be different. So I don't know how much COVID, though, would actually impact it. I hope it doesn't, but
there has been a research in California here, a couple of local drive-ins. My son's gone to see some movies that the place hasn't been open, and now all of a sudden they're showing movies at the drive-in. So
right, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's one of those things where opportunity pops its head up in weird places, and it's obviously an unfortunate situation to have this virus going willy-nilly everywhere and causing all this havoc. But at the same time, drive-in movies and your magazine, people want to read stuff and they want to forget. Like you say, it's a time machine, and it's also a way to kind of just zone out for a while and go back to a simpler time, or read a magazine. I can't tell you how many times I've read about a movie in this magazine and then not have ever seen it, and watch it I'll pull it up on YouTube or something. And it's like a hidden gem,
Yeah, and that's what we try to do. A lot of these old classics that no one has ever seen before, we try to bring that to light. And like some diehard monster kids, contacting us saying, "Man, I'm so glad you told me about Burn Witch Burn. I've never seen it before. It was fantastic." And so even the diehard monster kids, it really sheds light on unknown film gems. So
right. So what's coming up now for the magazine? You guys have a revised schedule. You said this was supposed to be an issue that came out in the summertime, and you guys have kind of tweaked things. So what can we look forward to in the coming months?
Right. Originally, the summer issue was going to be filmmaking behind the screams, but now that's our fall issue, number 119. And I'm actually working on, not fall, winter issue in November.
Yeah.
And actually working on it right now, going over the photo research and everything, but a lot of photos of behind the scene type look at all the classic films. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And we'll be covering a lot of interesting topics. So
cool. That's definitely one of the
late November that'll be coming out. So we've already started, working on that. Got to get it to the printer soon, and that's going to be another great one. But this issue, we have two. This is our third Scaretacular, we call it, and we have two previous Halloween issues, which are both equally as good. Issue 110 came out 2 years ago. That's 176 pages, and then last year's Weary of Werewolves and Leery of Lycans issue, that issue 114, that came out Halloween. So if you want to pick up some good Halloween reading, I'd pick those two up as well.
And you guys have this feature in the back of your magazine where you can order past issues of Scary Monsters going back decades, back to the early issues before you guys were even involved with it.
We're going on 30 years, 1991.
And I mean, you can pick these things up for a few dollars. Like it's such a good value, and you get these old issues of this magazine, and you can see how the styles have changed through the years, but the stories are just as interesting and just as relevant. Because again, this type of magazine, it works perfectly because nothing is current, really, with this type of magazine. So you can read an article from 25 years ago, and it's just like it was written now because it's about a movie that was put out there 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we actually have have a Halloween back issue blowout sale. So if you look on the inside front cover of issue 118, you can pick up some great reading material for $3 plus shipping. So
that's great.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, I may have to dig into that. My wife might get ticked at me for having piles of magazines, but you know what?
Just read. Listen, read. I tell these guys they're buying every single issue, and I'm like, just read slow. They like whip through this stuff. It's like you're pace yourself.
Yeah. Well, you guys have 117 that's just now hitting in places. You got this one out, and the next one's coming in November. So they're coming fast and furious over the last 3 months of 2020.
Yeah, COVID has really kind of impacted our production schedule. So take your time reading 118. You got a couple months, end of November, then you'll get your next issue, and then the one after that will be issue 120, and we're going to be doing a Castle of Frankenstein tribute issue.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's going to be in February. That'll be our special Monster Memory edition.
Nice. All right. Well, as you see on screen, anybody watching, that was just your website there, mymoviemonsters.com. Anybody that wants to log in and peruse, you guys have it's not just the magazine on this site either. It's tons of stuff.
We're a horror and sci-fi collectible. That's it. And we really don't kind of specialize in any slice and dice. It's all the good, old-fashioned, wholesome monsters.
Right. Yeah, there's King Kong and all that good stuff. All right, so you guys, again, I want to thank you guys for coming on tonight. I know you guys are super busy getting all this stuff together, and I appreciate you coming in and giving us some of your time. And again, this magazine is phenomenal. I get one every time it comes out, and I'll continue to do so. I'm just ticked off that I didn't realize this magazine existed until about 4 or 5 years ago. I could have been reading this for 20 years.
You're young. You're one of the young guys.
Yeah, well, relatively.
Hey, we appreciate your support, Rick, really, in Paradelphia.
Hey, anytime Mike's shaking his head, he thinks I'm not a young guy. I don't hear that very often.
Well, compared to us, you are. So go way back.
Yeah. All right. Well, you guys will have to come back on here in the next couple of months. Maybe when the Monster Memories come out, we can go through that magazine. Anytime you guys want to come on, you're welcome to come on the show. I love promoting your stuff because it's such a fun read and it's such a cool magazine to have.
Yeah, well, so for those viewers or listeners that want to pick up a copy, they can always get one at our website. You can go to scarymonstersmagazine.com. But like we are getting confirmation that sightings of 118 are in Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. We're up in Canada at Chapters Indigo stores, and we're also distributed through Diamond Comics internationally. So, yeah, and I have a feeling that this is going to be a very popular issue because of the glow-in-the-dark cover art. So, yeah,
this was picked up at a Barnes & Noble about 2 miles from me here in New Jersey.
All right.
Nice.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, thank you again, and we'll definitely put all the links on our show notes and get people to go over and buy your magazine and support your efforts because again,
anyone that wants to contribute a monster memory, you're always welcome to send us your story of when you first saw Jaws. Jaws was pretty scary,
Oh yeah,
not the book.
Not the book.
That's right.
That was scary in a different way.
Yeah, we're kind of G-rated here, so.
All right, guys. Well, thank you again for coming on. Best of luck with the magazine again, and we'll be talking to you very soon.
Happy Halloween.
Have a good night.
Halloween. All right, that was Don and Vicki Smeraldi, again of Scary Monsters Magazine. I love those guys. They come on every couple times a year maybe, and twice a year, and we have a ball.
It was very cool to put a face to the voice. Very cool to I've heard you interview them and everything, and have been a part of them. I never really did the perusing of everything that you guys talk about while you're talking about it, which is kind of interesting for me because it's teaching me more of visuals. Help me a lot. I need visuals. Yes, I need something to look at. This is why I don't read books. I'll read magazines. I love magazines. I don't read books. But no, it's very interesting for me. So I'm hoping for people that are visually watching the show or the podcast listeners will actually come over to the Facebook page and watch it. It's totally a different experience to watch it. But very, very interesting to me. I love that they kind of dabble both in the magazine world and the collectibles, like putting up that picture of King Kong. Like that's my kind of stuff. Like that's really cool to me. So very interesting.
And that draws in, a younger crowd, frankly. The collectibles is something that's kind of a bigger now than maybe the magazine would be, but you kind of draw the crowd in with the one angle, and then they start reading about these movies. Like they were mentioning my nephew that I went to Blobfest with last year. He's 17 or 18 years old. He's like an old soul that's, all into this kind of stuff.
Right, but see, he's the young one.
Oh, he's the young one. Oh, I get it.
I just want to make sure you understand where you stand.
Oh, I don't
comment.
I don't stand at 18 anymore. No, those days have long gone.
What I wouldn't have given to hang out one day with 18-year-old, not 18. I'll go 21 because I want to go drinking with you. 21-year-old Rick.
Yeah, you'd have had to deal with a fanny pack and a mullet.
Jeez, are you a 1980s wrestler? What the hell are you doing?
And a lot of fluorescent.
You gotta find a picture and send that to me.
Oh, there are pictures.
Oh, I bet there are. I'll talk to your wife.
There are pictures. All right. So again, I want to thank Don and Vicki for coming on. It was a fun interview. And if you guys want a great magazine to get you in the holiday mood for for Halloween season, go to Barnes and Noble. Go to Amazon, or not Amazon. I'm sorry. Movie. Is it on Amazon? I'm not sure.
Amazon. So I was just looked it up, and I do see a couple of books or magazines that look like theirs. Scary Monster magazine. Is that theirs?
They are, but they're older issues. But yeah, they're
older issues. But I mean, they're there.
So yeah, they're there. Or you can go to their website, mymoviemonsters.com. That's really the place to go, because you not only get the magazines, but you get all the collectibles. And like they were talking about the book. I love when they promote the books about the genre and about the movies, because I've never heard of these books before in everyday life.
Right.
Because they're not really promoted in like mainstream, it's not a Stephen King novel. It's not a, something that's going to be on the New York Times bestseller list. But these books are phenomenal, like writing about these movies. And if you have an interest in these movies, I've been reading these books for years now and getting the ideas out of the back of this magazine.
No, actually, and definitely go to their website, because even though you can't get it in other places, going directly to the people that are making it always helps them out a little bit more. So go to their website and support. All
right. So we're going to wrap things up here for the evening, but it has been a fun night. What's the matter, Mike? You look stunned.
I'm just shocked. It's the end of the party.
The end of the party. Yeah. Well, we'll be back again.
I got to down my Truly.
So this week was Don and Vicki from Scary Monsters. Next week, we have another one of those recorded interviews I did a couple weeks ago. So I already know ahead of time what we're going to do next week. Mr. Sal Santoro is a expert in the occult and witchcraft, and he runs a shop in Burbank, California, where he sells his wares. And I believe it's called the Crooked Path, if I remember that correctly. And we're going to have him, we had him on a couple weeks ago to do an interview. We're going to have that interview next week, and it'll be a fun time. He gets into a lot of stuff, and it's very metaphysical.
Cool. So
we'll delve into some real life witchcraft and occult mysticism next week, and then the week after that we'll do something which I'm not even sure what it's going to be yet, but it'll definitely be related to the Halloween season.
It's going to be badass. I got to say, Rick is back.
We are back here on
the way that you're just killing it with interviews. I'm in awe. So keep up the good work.
All right, brother. So anybody who's listening or watching, thank you for doing that. Continue to do that. Look for us on Facebook. Look for us on Twitter at Paradelphia. And again, you can go through the Toxic Radio, toxicradio.net. You can find us on there. Mike, you have anything else you want to throw out there about Toxic?
And on the brand new Toxic Radio app that actually finally works with Android, so you can stream not only the radio station, but go check out all the past episodes of Paradelphia.
That's very
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
What was it freaking? What's freaking?
Go on. I'll tell you what I was going to say in a second.
All right. So you can go there and check out all the other shows, including mine, shameless plug, Deviant Gamer, which this past episode we reviewed our thoughts of the upcoming Oculus Quest 2 and how VR is taking over the nation.
All right. I just geeked out for a second. I'll be back. All right, there we go. Now we're back. What I was going to say was that's very convenient that it now works on Android because I just jumped to Android phones.
I'm disconnecting your feed.
I got myself a Galaxy 20. Yeah.
Went from iPhone to Android.
I couldn't do it anymore. Steve Jobs, he went up and he died, and they just haven't done a damn thing since. They're living off their reputation.
Okay, that's where we're not gonna see eye to eye. All right,
all right. So we'll wrap it up there before Mike gets has a hernia. All right, guys. So again, thank you for joining, for listening, for watching, and we'll be back next week with an all new Paradelphia. So for Toxic Mike, I'm Rick. We are out of here.